So let us start today's session with the news that is read as quote unquote, are the Taliban on the brink of victory? So you all are aware that Taliban is quite a lot in news nowadays. So let us go back a little and look at the history of Taliban. So during the middle of the 20th century, Afghanistan was ruled by King Zahir Shah, and he brought many reforms, such as in elections. He brought political rights, women's education, and he invested in infrastructure. He went out for a while, and he was overtaken by his cousin brother Daud Khan, and he declared himself as the president as well as the prime minister of Afghanistan, and he promised a democratic government. But just 5 years later, that is in 1978, a revolution took place that is called as the Saur Revolution, or Saur basically means communist. So this was led by the people of PDPA, that is the People's Democratic Party of Afghanistan, and they took the help of the army that existed there, and they removed Daud Khan and enthroned Nur Muhammad Taraki, and they continued the modernization that was started by King Zahir Shah, but at the same time they brought land reforms, and it was not liked by the people, basically the rurals, because now they had to give up some share of the land, like the rich ones, and so there was a uprising against them. And now, to establish the government properly and stable it, they asked for help from the then very popular communist state, that is the USSR, and the USSR readily agreed to help them, and they tried to suppress this uprising with the help of USSR. And so this was called the Soviet Afghanistan. I wouldn't go deep into it, but I would tell you that in this war, what happened, like we know that there are two major powers. One is the USA and the other is USSR. So USSR wouldn't like if USSR would be able to capture another land and increase its most power, because already USSR is such a large country. So you call it out of jealousy or whatever, USSR started to supply the people of Afghanistan with ammunition. It was not only USSR, but there were other countries which supported the people of Afghanistan, such as Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, China, USA, and many more. So they used to supply the youth, or basically the youth were against them, with ammunition, and these youth were called as Mujahideen. Mujahideen basically means fighters in a holy war, or jihad. So these consisted of tribals, rebel groups, and warlords, and these Mujahideens consider USSR as a godless invader, and they were against them. So they was fighting against them, and they used guerrilla warfare because they were less in number. They did not have that type of military that was with USSR. So they used some strategies. This was called guerrilla war, when a small group of people fight with a bigger one with all military things and everything. So this is called a guerrilla war. They sit in high places and attack the larger military group. So this is how it all worked. So what happened in 1985, there in USSR, there was a general secretary of USSR, like he came into power. He was called as Mikhail Gorbachev, and he started reforms in USSR, and it decided not to expand their territory. He said, why should we expand their territory? Why not look within the country and improve it, bring reforms within our country? Why eye on someone else's territory? So they decided not to send their army in any other country, and not waste any more money in these wars and everything. Instead, start to invest within the country and improve it or develop it. So the USSR, like, they retreated their army, and but they thought to establish a stable government in Afghanistan before they leave. So they formed a government that was led by Najibullah, and and so the government or the USSR forces all left. But what happened in 19 excuse me, just wait a minute. In 1989, in 1991, the USSR collapsed. So they stopped funding the Najibullah government, and so it collapsed. And so the people started, like, many groups that started fighting amongst themselves. Some of the famous ones are Taliban and Northern Alliance, and many more. So they started fighting amongst themselves for power, and this continued for 4 years. You can imagine how long is 4 years. And the country was all in chaos. And then this Taliban rose. They arose in the southern part of the country, in a place called, their base was Kandahar, and from there they emerged, and they were very powerful. They defeated all the other governments and came into power. And now let me tell you something about this Taliban. Okay, just give me a sec. So this Taliban, basically word comes from Talib, which means religious students, and their leader at that time was Mullah Omar, and they were supported and backed by Pakistan, and they followed strict Sharia law. I know, no, I'm sure you might be aware of it, but let me give you a brief about it. They even use extreme version of it. So it is basically considered as a widespread human right abuse. Like, all the human rights are out of place. No one is like, especially the women are not given human rights. For example, no education, no voice, like no voting, no gathering of women, no free movement for women, and even if they can move, they have to move with a male person, especially their husbands, covering their body, complete body, with burqas. And also during the Taliban rule, the Shia started to kill the Sunnis. And so now I think you all might have got how Taliban emerged and what basic ideology it follows and everything. So let us move on with the current situation. But before that, I'll tell you that there was an attack done by an Al-Qaeda group on America, and they blasted off the two main towers at the World Trade Center, that is called as the 9/11, because it happened on 9th of September 2011, and they blasted off the World Trade Center's two towers. And so the America was at shock. So John Bush started an action towards them, and he launched an he started an operation against them. So they thought of eradicating all of this war and everything, these terrorist group, and he called it as the War on Terror. So then only the USA came into Afghanistan and tried to kill Taliban and all of these, and it stayed until this year, when under the governance of John Biden, they have thought of retreating back to USA and letting Afghanistan rule its own country. so that this unstable condition in Afghanistan has arisen again. So let us start off with the article now. Okay. The speed with which the Taliban have seized Afghanistan's key cities has triggered fears that Kabul would fall to Islamist insurgents sooner than many had expected earlier. So already everyone knew that once the USA army would go back, Taliban was sure to come in power. But the rate at which they are doing, that nobody had imagined. You can see here, until April 13, only these red parts that you can see was under the control of Taliban. But just within 3 months, you can see they have controlled almost the whole of it. The Taliban now controls at least 17 provincial capitals, including Kandahar and Herat. I already mentioned Kandahar, where Taliban arose, like their base is there. And these Kandahar and Herat are the two, like the largest cities of Afghanistan, and they have already captured. The largest one is obviously the Kabul, that is capital. They haven't captured it yet, but you can see like how close they have reached, and I'm sure they would capture it within just a few days or maybe weeks. And are pressing on with their offensive. In many places, government troops retreated en masse. So here, en masse is a term that means in a group altogether. So they have taken all of it in just one go. The government the government is retreating, like the government is giving up on easily, and they are able to capture all of it because they're too powerful, and the government isn't ready to keep their people's life at worth by just fighting, and they shooting bombing the areas. The map showing who controls which part of Afghanistan is changing by the hour. If the government had controlled all 34 provincial capitals and more than half of the country's 421 districts before May 1, Taliban now firmly in control of more than 60% of the territory. So here, there were 34 provincial capitals and 421 districts that were under the control of the government. But now, here as it mentioned, 17 provincial capitals are under the control of Taliban, and 242 Afghan districts are under the control of Taliban. So you see how rapidly they have been able to capture all of it, more than 60% of the territory. According to the Long War General, 242 Afghan districts are now controlled by the Taliban, while the government has 65 districts under its control. So now the government is left with only 65 districts that are totally under its control. Okay, so these grey areas. Otherwise, these pink areas, light pink areas, they are still under conflict, like half. They are fighting over it. So it cannot be considered autonomous, fully under the control of the government. While the rest are contested. The Taliban captured Zarang, the first city, on August 6. In 8 days, they have taken 17 provincial capitals. So they started off by taking Zarang, and they took 17 provincial capital just within 8 days. So you see what rapid improvements they have made. Now there might be a very good strategy that they might have planned. So let us have a look at it. When international troops started withdrawing on May 1, the Taliban started an offensive in the north, northeast and western districts of Afghanistan. The plan appeared to be consolidating their position in the hinterlands as well as surrounding the big cities. The Taliban captured most districts in Badakhshan and Takhar provinces, which had hosted the Northern Alliance that continued to fight the Taliban during 1996 to 2001. Okay. So now it's saying that the Taliban started to capture the territory from the northeastern parts and the southern parts. And here this is a word called consolidating. It means that combine into a single piece, means combine into a single piece, or rather you can say having all of it at one place, like having all the power at one place, or getting everything at one place. So yeah. And the other thing is hinterlands. Hinterlands are basically the areas that are beyond major towns. So maybe you can call it as rural areas or places that are not well connected with big cities or anything like that. Yeah. So Taliban started off with these rural areas which were not that much connected with the cities, and this Northern Alliance was also a group at that time when the chaos was there in the country. And yeah, after capturing the district, the Taliban turned their forces to the border crossing. They seized the Sher Kha Bandar crossing with Tajikistan, which was partially built with US funds, the Islam Killa crossing with Iran, and Spin Boldak with Pakistan. So let me just show you these borders. So Islam Killa is with Iran. So here is Iran. So this border is called the Islam Killas. They have already captured this part of the country. And Sher Kha Bandar with Tajikistan. That means they have already captured the north one with Tajikistan. And the Spin Boldak with Pakistan. So the whole border that Afghanistan shares, the huge one with Pakistan, they have already captured. So only parts of Turkmenistan and Uzbekistan is left. The Taliban squeezed the Kabul government out of critical revenues, leaving a financial blow. So now that they have captured all of the borders and the government is left in the center and they can go nowhere. So they are just trapped here, and also soon they would run out of revenue as trade isn't possible because of the war. They have control all the border. How would trade be possible? So sooner or later the government would run out of finance, like out of money. And the control over the northern border would also allow the insurgents to check potential aid coming from neighboring countries to their enemies in the future if 1990s type civil war breaks out. So the fact that they have captured northern border ensures that now, like, there might be some other groups like the government or some other groups that might be against Taliban. So now that they have captured the northern part, they can ensure that there will be no supply from north to help the other groups, as it was in 1990s civil war. Okay, so now moving further, the control over the north. Okay, after taking the district and key borders crossing, the Taliban turned fighting towards cities. They had already laid siege to the main cities such as Kandar, Mazar-e-Sharif, Kunduz and Ghazni. So here it's saying now that they have captured the borders, captured the rural areas, now they're eyeing at the urban areas, means basically the cities. So that's what their strategy is, to control the weaker portions first and then eye at the more stronger places. And already we have witnessed that they have captured the two largest cities of Afghanistan. Moving further on, all they had to do was to start an all-out offensive breaking through government defenses. They first took smaller cities in the north and then moved to bigger ones such as Herat and Kandar. The plan appears to isolate the surround Kabul to force the government of Ashraf Ghani to surrender or launch an offensive on the cities. So their plan was to squeeze the government in the middle. They have controlled the border. They are coming towards the capital city, that's the Kabul. That's why they haven't captured the Kabul, which is the largest city till now. So the plan is that they'll capture all of it, and by the time they'll reach Kabul, the government would already have run out of money and it would have nowhere to escape. So they would have to surrender or launch something, and that wouldn't work because already all of it was under the Taliban control, and they would fight back. So now coming back to the capital city, that is Kabul. Is Kabul in danger? The fall of Ghazni, Herat and Kandahar are the heaviest setbacks to the government so far in the war. Ghazni sits on Kabul-Kandahar highway, roughly 150 kilometers south of Kabul, linking the Taliban-controlled areas with capital city. The way Ghazni felt surprised many. The governor of the province, Daud Lagmi, handed over this should have been here, office to a senior Taliban commander without any resistance. He gave a flower to the Taliban commander and congratulated him. So here it's saying that the Ghazni is in the center, but this man called Daud Lagmi, he is the governor of one of these provincial states, and this is the capital city Kabul, and this is Herat. He lived here, and all of this area was controlled by Taliban. So the only link with the capital city was these Taliban people. And when they came to Herat, he simply just handed over his territory because he knew there was no way out, because he was surrounded by Taliban people and he couldn't ask for help from Kabul as well. So he just handed over the territory without any resistance. And as well, it's mentioned that he gave a flower to the Taliban commander and congratulated him. So you see, like, what extent they have reached. Even the officials are giving flowers to these terrorists because they have no other option, obviously. An official in the governor's office told that Wall Street Journal, this was published in the Wall Street Journal, Ghazni fell on the morning of August 12, and in the event, Herat was also in Taliban's control. Within hours of Herat's fall, jihadists took Kandahar, the birthplace of Taliban. Clearly, the Taliban are encircling Kabul from all sides. So here, that's what they are saying, that they are eyeing on Kabul from all sides. They have already captured all of the other cities, and now they're just going to attack Kabul. The Taliban's advances have pushed foreign governments into swift action. The US and the UK are sending more troops to evacuate the diplomats and civilians from the country. So now, like, the extent they have reached is just troubling all other countries. Like the US government and the UK government are sending their people, like sending troops to evacuate the people who were working in Afghanistan, their people, their diplomats, and the civilian also. India recently closed its consulate in Mazar-e-Sharif earlier in the week. Afghanistan acting defense prime minister Khalid Paida quits his job and left the country, which speaks of the mood in the government. So here it's saying that the defense minister, like, who should have been controlling and looking into this, he just quits and went somewhere outside the country. So that's showing how the government is not concerned with the people, but the people in the government are concerned about themselves and they're just going away. They are like, the government is chosen by the people, but they're not protecting the people. They're just leaving them in trouble and just going away. The US intelligence, which had earlier concluded that Kabul could fall within 6 months, revised its assessment that the Taliban could capture the capital within 90 days. So, as I earlier mentioned, that people had never imagined that Taliban would do all of this so quickly, because they thought the Taliban would come into power and capture cities and capitals, but it would take a lot of time. The US intelligence had said that they would take 6 months. But now they have revised it and said no, it wouldn't even take them 6 months. Just 3 months is enough. So, and 3 months more, like, that's the extreme they are giving. Obviously, it would happen before that. They would have already captured Kabul, according to the Washington Post. The situation looks a lot worse than what it was in 1989, when the Soviet troops pulled back after 10 years of military intervention in Afghanistan. So now the situation is like a lot more worse than what it was when the USSR backed its army. Like, that time, although there was a lot of conflict, but it was a settled, like, everything was stable after a while. But now if you look, Taliban is just bombing everything, and once it controls the whole of Afghanistan, who knows what else they would be eyeing on. They can eye on any country and bomb it. So people around the world are afraid now. The communist government of Muhammad Najibullah clung on to power in Kabul for 3 more years despite repeated attacks by Mujahideen, who were backed by ISI and CIA. So here it's talking about the history, as I had already told, that the Najibullah government that was set by the USSR before they left, that remained for power in 3 more years, like before before Mujahideen started to bomb them and everything started. But here, as you can see, it's been only 3 months and they have all of the chaos had already started. And if you look back, they remained at least for 3 more years. So yeah, that's why it's saying that this time the situation is way more, like, very worse. Despite the repeated Najibullah's regime fell in 1992 only after supplies from Moscow dried up following the disintegration of the Soviet Union in 1991. It took 4 more years for the Taliban to reach Kabul in 1996. Now, with the US occupation set to end in 2 weeks, the Taliban seem to be eyeing Kabul before the winter sets in. So here it's again talking about the history that I've already told you, that the USSR fell in 1991 and Moscow, I think you'll be aware, is the capital of Russia. So when the USSR disintegrated, means it broke down, the supply and support that was provided to the Najibullah government stopped, and that's why there was a lot of chaos and uprising among these Mujahideens, and it took 4 years for the Taliban to come into power. But here they're saying before the winter sets in. So as you can see, it's August and just 3 or 4 months left for the winter to set in. So they are saying that time it took them 4 months. Now it won't even take them a year. Already in 3 months they have captured so much, and in the remaining 1, 2 or maybe 3 months they will capture whole of it, and they are especially eyeing at the capital city, that is Kabul. So that was the news, that was the article that came in the newspaper, the Hindu newspaper today. Now let us have a quick look at the words that we saw today. En masse, that means in a group altogether. Consolidate, combine into a single piece. Hinterland, the areas beyond a major town. And siege, a military operation in which enemy forces surround a town, cutting off essential supply.